Welcome to the Sounds Good podcast. I'm your host, Big Red of Big Red Records. I'm a music producer and multi-instrumentalist, and this show is built on a simple idea. If it sounds good, it sounds good. This is where I sit down with artists, producers, and people across the music world to talk about their process, their perspective, their lives, and what they think sounds good. Let's tune in. I'm sure you've heard this before, but I'm not sure if you've heard the whole quote. I wrote it down here. So, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Ooh.
So as you see, I would say you are a master of one rather than a jack of all trades. Now, you might disagree with me on that, but I'd like to get your opinions on that quote and what you think about it.
Yeah, interesting. So I think it's good to kind of dive into a lot of different subjects and have some breadth because having more skills means you can kind of transfer them into different areas more, right? So somebody like Trent Reznor would probably be kind of a jack of all trades because he plays all the instruments on his albums, right? He plays like the guitar, the bass, the keys, and he sings and he writes. So he can kind of do all of that. Versus somebody like like Sam Smith, for example, he sings, and as far as I know, he doesn't, do all the other stuff. So, I think it just depends. It depends where you kind of want to go with your career. For me, I think my focus has been to master the one instrument. I have taken lessons and learned a bunch of other instruments. I do know how to play guitar, piano. I've taken lessons, piano lessons, ukulele, and voice.
Okay.
Which has helped my overall musical understanding, but my focus has always been on the bass. And I find that my skills in other areas, like video editing and like producing my own like tracks, like for social media and stuff, and learning how the social media algorithm works and stuff like that has been very helpful and supplemental to my career. Learning other instruments is great, but also learning other skills, other tech skills, and other, skills in.
Right. So you would agree that oftentimes a jack of all trades is better than the master of one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I feel like I might go the other way because if you want to be, I suppose it depends on what your goals are, but if you're looking to be the best at something, I feel like that's very hard to do if you're not solely focused on that one thing.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? Because are you truly a master if you're doing other things? Because you could be spending more time on that one thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's with bassists, I've noticed that, like for example, there's upright bass and electric bass, and they often say you should play both to get the most gigs. But one thing I've noticed is that the people who are really virtuosic at one often are not as good at the other. Like there's very few people who can consider themselves like total masters of both. For example, Victor Wooten would be one of the best electric bass players, and he's okay upright bass player, but his technique is not like idiomatic. He kind of plucks like this, like with an electric bass, but you're supposed to pluck with the meat of your fingers, which
Mm-hmm.
like a to get the deeper tone, right? And
Right.
there's guys like Stanley Clark and what's his name, John Patitucci, who seem like they're kind of masters at both, but even those guys, I would say, like for example, Stanley Clark can shred the upright, but he doesn't have the same slap um, proficiency as somebody like Victor Wooten. So I do agree in a sense that, yeah, it is really difficult to um, master one thing totally if you're kind of splitting your
Yeah.
attention in multiple directions. You just don't have enough time to master that one thing as somebody who's dedicating all their time to that one thing. So that's one of the reasons why uh, I stopped taking vocal lessons. Actually, was I wanted to focus specifically on mastering the bass. So I would practice like 7 hours a day during COVID.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Do you
but
feel like you have mastered the bass? Like, what else is there left to learn?
it's a good question. I feel like I've mastered some things. I think my tapping proficiency is pretty good. Like with my two-hand tapping skills on my arrangements, like the Mario theme and some of my originals like Musica della Noche, and yeah, so I think my tapping proficiency is pretty top tier. My slapping is also quite good. My slapping is, I have a really good slap technique. I've had a lot of viral videos, obviously. I think one area that I want to improve on is jazz improvisation, because I always find jazz improvisation to be challenging. I can do it. I know how to do it. I mean, I just played a jazz gig yesterday, but it's not as natural for me as just slapping some crazy 16th notes or creating a
Right.
tapping arrangement, right? So that's something I want to continue to improve on. So I don't think I've mastered everything, but I would say that with the time I've put in, I could say I've mastered some things.
Yeah. I would agree. And I I think if anyone who's watching or listening to this and they haven't heard any of your stuff, I would suggest you go take a look. He's got quite a few YouTube videos that are what is it, tens of millions of views or something for some of them,
Uh,
or just
well,
millions?
I have two YouTube videos with over 1 million views, and then with those are both shorts, and then I have a bunch of Instagram and TikTok videos and Facebook videos with million and plus views. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there's some serious skill going on there, some technical ability that's just unmatched to anyone else I know. Um, I would say, I don't know. Do you know anybody else in Canada that would rival your ability in those two fields you mentioned?
To be honest, this might sound cocky, but not that I've met. but
Yeah, I would agree
I,
with you.
but I will say that there are people that I don't know, that I would say rival me. There's this guy named Josh Cohen, who is one of my big inspirations for tapping. He comes from the Toronto area. And he was the guy who inspired me to take up the Phil Jones solo bass competition that I won. And his tapping proficiency is really good. And he's got some really cool solo arrangements. And then there's one of my big inspirations on the 6-string bass, Alain Caron from Montreal.
Okay.
His slapping technique is almost unparalleled. He's right at the top on in that department, and he's been one of my big inspirations. So yeah.
Yeah. So you do a lot of arrangement too, which is kind of, I would say, what you've made kind of a reputation around building, that kind
Totally.
of making one instrument sound like a band.
Yeah.
Does that make it hard to actually put it into a real band? Like when you make an arrangement on the bass and then you try to fit it into, a drummer and a guitar player and a vocalist, does it make it difficult?
Yeah. So that's an interesting, very interesting question because I have had a lot of experience with that. So yeah, I really like to do solo arrangements. Obviously, arranging all the parts for the band. I've done that with songs like "Get Lucky" by Daft Punk, "Isn't She Lovely" by Stevie Wonder. And you're right. When you play that solo, it can work really well. But then when you take that into a band, when you're playing all the parts, all of a sudden the context is different. So
Mm-hmm.
it's harder to pull off because I might be playing all the parts at the same time, but because the guitar is playing, the keys are playing, the sax is playing, all of a sudden those parts are getting buried in the mix because solo bass isn't super loud. It doesn't like punch
Yeah,
through. When you play a tap when you tap a chord, it doesn't punch through the mix as much as just when you pluck a note with your fingers, right?
right.
You're kind of sacrificing that. So, um, yeah. So, um, it's been a challenge to try to I guess translate my solo arrangements to band context, but one of the things I've done is been like, okay, here's the part where I play the bass role. So I kind of take that solo bass part out, but I'll kind of insert it back in where it might make sense. So I might take, for example, for Get Lucky, I might play the bass for the verse and the chorus, but then in the bridge section, I might open it up into a whole solo bass section where I can put my solo bass part of my solo bass arrangement in there, and the other guys stop, or maybe it's just me and the drummer, right?
Right.
And that type of stuff. But there's also a lot of form things where I like play a crazy arpeggio and go up and down where it doesn't make sense for the whole band to play. So like I have to make them stop, do like a stop so I can play this crazy thing, right? And that's tricky because it's really hard to memorize having to stop at a bunch of random places in the song, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so there's been a lot of like teaching these arrangements to people, and it just it takes time, but eventually we kind of all kind of pick up on it, and it usually turns out well, especially when we play Get Lucky live. That one usually slaps, literally
Yeah,
and
literally.
figuratively.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
Um, so last summer you were one of the musical directors for the Canadian Musicians Cooperative Tour, the Barnes to Beaches tour. And
correct.
we had a couple of your songs on there, uh, Call and Response and Musica della Noche.
Hmm.
And so that's an example, I think, of some of your songs that you've arranged into quite a large band. Um, were those written as solo bass songs, and then you had to kind of rearrange them into a full band for that tour, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, um, one of them was Musica della Noche was written originally as a solo bass tune, and yeah, with that one, I it was interesting because when I was writing the tune, I was actually arranging it in such a way that I was actually imagining a big band playing it at the same time. So I was like, okay, here's what the trumpets would play, here's what the piano would play, and here's what the bass would play, and here's how I would do that at the same time. I was really inspired by Latin jazz music like Chucho Valdez, Irakere, and Arturo Sandoval. Um, so listening to those guys and their big Latin jazz bands with horn sections and stuff, I was trying to emulate how that would sound, but just on the one bass, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I ended up kind of transcribing the whole arrangement for a band, it was a little bit easier because I had already envisioned kind of what each part would sound like when I wrote the tune. So like, here's the melody. Obviously, that's what the horns are going to play. Here's the little montuno part. That's what the piano player is going to play. And here's what I'm going to play. I'm just going to play the bass part, just basically my left hand during the whole song. And so it did work out pretty good in that respect. That's one I do play a lot. I have I have like a bunch of different versions of that song. I have like a solo bass version. I have a version with a very pared down instrumentation like bass, congas, trumpet, and guitar. And then I have a version with like a full band and like a big band. Anyway, so
Yeah.
so that's how that one goes. With Call and Response, that was originally written as a full band song, so that one was just easy to transcribe for the whole band. I wrote that one for my second album. That's the title track, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Both very, very catchy songs, very well written, and I always find it fascinating when someone can write a piece so technically impressive, but then also have it just be a good, catchy song that you want to listen to, you know?
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Which that might sound like a bit of an insult, but it's a good thing.
Yeah. No, it's hard to make technical stuff sound catchy. It's very true.
Yeah. You were talking about your inspiration from Latin jazz music.
Hmm.
Is there any like specific things that you could tell us that helped you recreate that sound? Like, is there techniques you used or different scales or modes or anything that you specifically used to make it sound like that Latin jazz style?
Yeah, it's a good question. The Latin jazz has always been very interesting to me because it's a very groovy style of music. Um, but it's also very technical and complex, yet still somehow people want to dance to it, which is crazy because usually the technical stuff people don't dance, they just sit and watch. But that's a
Mm.
style that people will get up and dance to, and it's so I've always been intrigued, and the accents are so different to what we usually do in rock music, where it's like, beats 1 and 3 have the emphasis, and beats 2 and 4 are like the backbeat. So it's just like really just a strong quarter note pulse the whole way through, right? And that's with most of our popular music, whereas with Latin jazz, it's almost like the end of 2 and 4 are the accents, at least for the bass part. Usually Latin jazz has a clave going, so it's like da 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 da
Right.
da, something like that, right? So that's your pulse, that's your constant ostinato that you're sticking to, which is harder to follow along, just da 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 da, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, I and there's a lot of different interweaving parts in the Latin jazz style, like the montuno, the tumbao, and different stuff like that. Yeah, when you hear them all combined, it's like, yeah, it's hard to know where you are when you're just when you're some guy from Canada who didn't grow up with this style of music, right? So
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, what I did was I studied it a lot, and the tumbao is the bass part. That's the left hand. It goes on the end of 2 like this. Dot 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 dot. Right. So
Right.
I played that. I obviously transcribed that for the left hand, and then for the right hand, the piano part is the montuno, and that kind of goes like da 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 ba ba ba. There's a lot of upbeats, right?
Right.
So, and that's the piano part, and then for the melody, right? I just wrote a melody with
Right.
obviously very highly syncopated. But yeah, so there's a lot of, I find Latin jazz really cool in that there's a lot of interesting ways you can syncopate it, and yeah, it sounds really cool when you are able to kind of transfer all that into a solo arrangement.
Yeah, for sure. What does Música de la Noche mean? Is that Spanish for something?
It's Spanish for music of the night. Yeah, yeah. I always say at my gigs, since most of them are in the evening, I say it's a fitting song for the occasion because if you didn't notice, it's nighttime. So, yeah.
And then the crowd goes wild.
and then they usually just laugh. But yeah, and then it's usually pretty fun.
Right on. Something I've heard a lot from other bass players or just from like teachers and mentors is that a good bass player knows when to keep it simple versus when to show off and do something
Yep.
crazy. With your style of music, where most of your bass lines are, really fast or really technically challenging, some might see it as showing off all the time. What do you
Mhm.
say to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I would say it depends on the style, right? Because as a bass player by trade, um, when I play in other bands, I obviously just play the bass part, right? But when I play in my own band, that's just me writing music uh, that I like, right? That I want to hear. So in that essence, yeah, there's usually more complex bass lines. And I would say that it's not necessarily always about playing simple. That's usually good, depending on what style you're playing. But it's really about what's appropriate to the setting,
Right.
right? So if you're in a band like but geez, what's that band called? Tribal Tech? Is that the band? The one with Gary Willis? I don't know. I think that's a band. There's a lot of complicated bass parts, right? Because it's jazz fusion and it's just all about that kind of 16th note subdivisions and lots of syncopations. Or what's another band? Dirty Loops, right? The those guys, and they're playing like crazy 30 second or 16th note shots all over the place. And
Right.
so in that type of situation, it might actually sound weird if the drummer and player are going to 11 the whole time, and the bass player's just going don't don't
Right.
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 So in my opinion, it's simple is best in when you're playing bass, with the added amendment that it depends on the style. Really, what it is it's about playing what's appropriate to the style or the situation. And there's some situations, like a jazz fusion context, or solo bass, or showing off for Instagram, since that seems to be what gets the views, where playing more virtuosic or playing more technical might be appropriate to the situation. And then a jazz fusion style too, like, because the drummer is like accenting like all these 16th notes, locking in with the drummer means playing those 16th notes too, right? So yeah, I would say I would add an amendment to that, saying that it depends on the style. But for sure, when I'm playing with a cover band, like I'm touring with a cover band called Relive the Music in September and October. We're going across Canada, and we're going to be stopping actually in Ontario. So and that band, I'm just going to be playing bass. I'm just going to be playing roots. I don't think anybody's in the audience is even going to know that I can slap. It's just going to
Really?
be,
Yeah.
yeah. It's I'm just there to support, right? There's a whole a cast and they're singing songs like Elvis and Tina Turner, and they're, they have costumes and stuff. And so in that situation, yeah, it's really not appropriate for me to go bump, 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 bump,
Right,
and
right.
all over
Yeah.
the place.
Yeah.
I got to keep it simple, right? So, yeah.
Do you find that affects like when people go to hire you, like they'll see kind of the stuff you've done on YouTube or anything, and he's like, "Oh, this guy's really good, but does he know how to just play Elvis or Tina Turner?"
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. That is definitely a thing for sure. That's why I was actually surprised when these guys hired me, because I was like, have they? They looked at my videos. Do they really think I can pull this
Do they
off? I
know
mean,
who I
I know I
am?
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know I can. I know that I can definitely, lay down a good bass part when the time calls for it, because I've played in cover bands for years, and you know, um, sorry, excuse me. But they don't necessarily know that by watching my Instagram. Like they might see that and be like, "Oh, he only slaps and taps or whatever," right?
Right.
But yeah, this guy saw me playing at the River Rock Casino out in Richmond a few years ago, and he's just like, "Oh, this guy's a good bass player. I might need him for a tour one day, because he has two bass players, but there's occasionally the time where not neither of them can make it, so he
Right.
had to call me up." And I was just surprised that he would want to do that, seeing me like shredding. But I guess he was just like, "Oh, he can play the crazy stuff. He could probably play the simple stuff too." I guess I don't really know, but I definitely think I sometimes I've been typecast, because like a lot of the time, I end up for gigs in town. When somebody asks me to play bass for them, a lot of times, excuse me, that they're asking me to play parts that pretty much no, not to be cocky, but like almost nobody else can play. Like some people are like, they write these really specific slap parts that are really technical and require lots of like double thumping and double plucking, because they wrote them on a piano, and there's just like no other way to play it on a
Yeah.
bass
Yeah.
without incorporating some really advanced techniques. And it's like, and then they hire me because like they know that I'm one of the few guys who can do that. And yeah, so I feel like to a certain extent I often get asked to do the music that's just, really really crazy and calls for that type of style. But it's less often that I get asked to do something like just, like a musical theater thing, or like, an instance where I just have to go boom, boom, just like, simple
Yeah.
bass lines, even though I can do that. Just like they don't see me as like that's the guy, that's his, you know?
Right. Right.
So, but yeah.
Do you find you get tired of the gigs that are asking you to do just the, brink of the impossible, or do you still love doing those ones?
Yeah, a bit of both. I find that sometimes, like, yes, it can be very, very time consuming to have to learn like a bunch of crazy bass parts that sometimes even I can't play. and
Right.
and then but eventually if you stick with that same group for a while, what I find is it's it's like, the word like phrase diminishing returns. It's kind of like almost the opposite of that, because as somebody continues to get gigs, they usually start getting better gigs and gigs that pay better, because they're just more experienced and their press kit is growing. So
Hmm.
and then they've so and then the other element to that is that the more gigs you play with the same group, the less you have to practice eventually, because they just, they start to stick. So at a certain point, there's like you just kind of reach a certain threshold, and then it starts to get easier. So that's always nice when you're like, oh, I finally feel like I'm settling in without having to practice, you know, every day for like a week. all day
Yeah,
for this
yeah.
one gig that only pays $150. So, um, yeah. So eventually it starts to get easier, and which is cool. But yes, I sometimes like, there are times when I'm like, oh, like if I was hired for like a gig where I just had to play like 30 simple songs and like just play in a cover band, right? But I mean, there's always pluses and minuses. Like I've heard a lot of different, experiences about playing with different bands, like cover bands in the city, and like, how sometimes they're not so great. So yeah, no, I'm happy with the gigs I have currently. So
Yeah. That's good. That's good to hear. That's good to hear that it gets easier too.
yeah, totally.
Do you
At
find
some
you?
point.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Do you? I guess let me follow up with this question. Obviously, you weren't always this good, but when you started playing, maybe not so obviously, but when you started playing like professionally, um, how does that compare to what your skill level is at now? Because you've been playing for what, 15 years or something professionally?
Yeah, how long have I been playing? Since 2012. Yeah. So rough, yeah, 14 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Or no. Sorry, 2013. So 13 years. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm definitely a lot more skilled than when I started playing professionally, for sure. Cause
Yeah.
yeah. Um, for example, like there were times when I would be like playing when I got some of my first few professional gigs. Like there are times when I would be playing like jazz on stage at say like a wedding or something, and I would just lose the form, right? Because I wasn't fully immersed in the jazz yet and how to follow along. Now it's like if I play a jazz gig, it's just it's a lot easier for me to just you know, like even if I get lost, because sometimes you get absent-minded and you're like, oh, the waitress dropped a drink, or
Right.
something,
And then you lose beat
and and,
one or whatever.
and yeah, and then you lose what chord you're on, and you're like, oh, whoop, and then I can always get back because my ear knows where the song is or where it's supposed to be, and so I just jump ahead to wherever because I can hear the guitar player or whatever and the chords he's playing, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a 2-5-1, that's a 3-6-2-5, that's a sub, that's a subdominant or whatever, a tritone substitution or whatever, right? So I can hear that and be like jumped ahead to where I am. Or if it's like 4 bars per system, usually I can hear that it's like, oh, for some reason I'm like on bar 4, but I can tell we're supposed to be on bar 1 of the next system, right? So it's
Uh,
just like, and that's just something that just comes with experience playing jazz. I don't think there's any way around that. You just have to play jazz with people a lot to get that intuition of like where you're actually supposed to be, right? So definitely,
what what makes jazz different than other genres? Because a lot of people kind of joke around that it's just like you can play whatever you want, basically. But obviously, that's not the case.
yeah, it's I think the thing that makes jazz different is that because the harmony is there's so many more chords usually than a regular pop song. It's just, and the melodies are a lot more, well, they're not necessarily more intricate. They can be. Um, it's just a lot harder to follow, I find, than a regular verse because usually, or a regular pop song, sorry, because usually most pop songs like Diamonds by Rihanna, for example, that's just 3 chords the whole song, right?
Right.
Or usually the chord progression is usually a 4 bar or at most an 8 bar loop, right? So you just have to memorize that 4 to 8 bar loop and then you're good. With jazz tunes, the simplest tune is either like a 12 bar blues or a AABA structure, which each A is 8 bars and the B is 8 bars, but that's like as simple as it gets, right? So there's still a heck of a lot more chords in that structure than there is, and you have to memorize that whole 32 bar form, right? So each A section might be slightly different than the last too, right? So yeah, it's harder to follow because there's just a lot more harmony and a lot more chords, and if you're not used to what those chord progressions sound like, if you get lost, it's hard to find your way back. There's been a couple of times I remember one time when I was playing in front of the whole school. We were playing in a performance techniques class where people put a band together and just play something they're working on for the whole school. And I was playing for my buddies jazz performance techniques, like recital, and we were playing Stella by Starlight, and I just, for some reason, everything sounded wrong. I don't know what it was. In that moment, he was really rephrasing the melody in a different way, and I was hearing stuff in the keyboard or like the piano chords, and I was like, I think I'm in the wrong place. And then so I just started jumping all over the place.
No.
And I was like, no, I'm still in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And then I just got completely lost, and I was like, oh crap, this is not good. And then my bass instructor he was there, and I was like, oh man, this is in front of my bass instructor. He ran down and he's like, he pointed to where we were supposed to be. He's like, we're right here. And then he patted me on the back, and he went back up, and I was like, okay, we're back here. And so I went back to where he told me to go. But for some reason, I was still off. I don't know what happened. Why is my brain not working? Maybe I jumped to that bar too late or too early, but it still sounded wrong. And so maybe I started jumping ahead. I don't know exactly what was going on, but by the end, I don't think I came back to like the very last chord. And then, yeah, he came down and he's like, Colin, you, like, in front of the whole school, he was like, Colin, you never came back to the to where the to the chord progression, right? And apparently the keyboard was the piano player was trying to lay down where the like the root note was in the bass part to help me, but I was panicking, so I guess I didn't pick up on that. So
Right.
yeah, it was just like I was just like, crap, man, I just shat the. Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah.
In front of the front of the whole school. Yeah, and so that was a bit of a rough experience, and yeah, it just goes to show you can kind of sometimes just psych yourself out and mess up.
Yeah.
But so that was kind of one of my experiences of how jazz can be tougher to follow, because in a pop song you can hear the lyrics, and if you get lost, you're like, oh, that's the verse, that's the chorus, you can just hear it. And with jazz music, if you don't have the experience of playing it and knowing what those melodies and chord progressions are supposed to sound like, it can be harder to follow along. Luckily, since then, I've played that same tune, Stella by Starlight, many times, and I've never gotten lost. So I played it last night. Yeah. So I learned from my mistakes. It was just it was a learning experience. I will say that.
Have you ever had any other experiences where maybe professionally where, well, actually, let me phrase it like this. Have you ever got fired or kicked off of a gig for not being good enough?
Oh, good question. Have I? I feel like that might have happened, but I don't think so. Wow. It's an interesting question. Not that I can remember. Thank goodness. I've heard a lot of stories about people getting fired and kicked off of gigs, and it just sounds like an absolute nightmare. So luckily, I don't think it's happened to me. I don't tend to take on gigs that I don't think I can kind of
Handle?
keep up with,
Yeah. Have you got fired or kicked off for something else?
Hmm.
Or
No, not that I can
even
think
like
of.
politely shoved out the door?
No, I think the biggest thing is maybe if somebody doesn't like the way you're playing or the way you fit in with the band, they might just not ask you back. But I've never been fired explicitly. I don't think. Maybe I have. I just don't remember it. But I think
You're
the
mentally
biggest thing
blocking
is
it out, maybe.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe it was so traumatic. I don't. I'm blocking it out. It's possible. I mean I've just played so many gigs over the years that I can't remember that. I will say that yes, I actually come to think of it, there's kind of a situation like you're describing, but not exactly the same. Not in a band situation,
Okay.
but um a solo bass situation. Ironically enough, which you think that's perfect for me, but I played with this. I used to get gigs with this talent agency in town, and a lot of people in town really don't like working with this particular talent agency because there's so many just weird experiences people have had. Um, just there, and there's this one place, one particular venue in town that they asked me to play at downtown near the waterfront, and yeah, a lot of their performers play there regularly. They've got a whole thing going, and they asked me to play there one time, and so I did, and I did my solo bass thing, and it seemed to be going fine. Somebody actually came up and asked me, they're like, "Can you play some Victor Wooten?"
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I don't know if the talent agency would like that because they said they don't take requests from the audience, which is kind of bizarre. Um,
Okay.
so I probably should have just started playing Victor Wooten and whatever, right? YOLO. And then, yeah, one of the staff was like kind of grooving along, and it seemed like it was going fine. But then at some point, this big, mean-looking guy in a suit comes up and stands near the stage, and he's looking at me real mean and stern, but he's standing, like 10 feet away from me and just like crossing his arms like this and looking at me real mean. So he's making me walk over towards him rather than coming to me. And I was like, okay, what's going on? What's going on, buddy? And he's like, in a mean, deep, gruff voice, he's like, do you have anything other than this? And I was like, I don't know, man. Is it like I'm just playing the bass here? Is there something wrong? He's like, is this all you do? And I'm just like, I mean, I think it. I mean, that's pretty much this is what I do, bro. Do you want me to play something? He's like, do you have anything more uplifting than this? And I was like, sure, I can play a different song. So I ended that song and tried to move into a different song, and yeah, and I during that time I could see him like talking to some of the other management and like kind of pointing at me, and then people started making calls, and I was just like, oh boy, this is
Boy.
making me this is not a fun time, right? So anyway, um yeah, it was just really weird. It was a really weird vibe. And the next day, I got a call from my talent agent, and they were like, "Yeah, they don't really want you playing here anymore."
Oh.
Uh, they're like, apparently, like they're like, they just don't like solo bass. They just, it's just too deep, too much, too deep, and not, yeah. It just didn't
I
fit
don't
the
know.
vibe. Yeah, so it was really
Interesting.
weird. I think what it was the sound there is like kind of boomy and echoey because there's like windows and stuff, and so the solo bass might not translate as well as like say piano and vocals or
Right.
even a guitar, right? So I think that might have been the main issue. But I mean, I think the other issue is that I mean, I know a heck of a lot of other people who have had problems playing there. So I think part of it is just the establishment itself is very kind of weird. Um,
Mm,
the like they don't really know what they want, but they'll kind of treat performers kind of like second class citizens a lot. And I remember playing at another place downtown, and at some point I got another call from them, and they were like, "Yeah, they only want upbeat singers now." So I had been playing regularly at this place for years, and then all of a sudden, and the patrons really liked me too. But at some point, some straight-jacketed management guy, who has not a creative bone in his body and has no conception of live music beyond just the regular thing, and top 40,
right.
acoustic covers, whatever, right? Just makes the decision that, oh, we don't want anything that kind of cuts against the grain here, and we're just gonna kick this other stuff out, even if it's doing well with the patrons. So I think I attribute a lot of this stuff to unimaginative management types who don't really know anything about music. It's not the same as somebody who books a music venue is into art, right? These are people at establishments like restaurants who their main job isn't to book music, so they
Right.
just have their own idea. But these people aren't typically creative types that would appreciate this type of stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've definitely had a few experiences where there's kind of just people who work at a restaurant and then also happen to book the music. They don't really, they're not a booker. They just book the bands because they also work there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've started to do a bit of booking myself, with that kind of as my pitch, where you can just say, like, first of all, I know a lot of people in the area who can fit the vibe that you're looking for, um, because I don't think a lot of venues who are looking for live music know exactly how to verbalize what they want,
Yeah, exactly.
in a performer, right? And to keep it, with a bit of variety as well, like you were saying, like not just top 40 hits, but to have, some eclectic tastes like yourself.
Yeah,
Uh, and some even
exactly.
just different instrumentation, like not just a singer and a guitar player every time. Have someone who plays the keys or have someone who plays the violin or the bass.
Totally.
Um, yeah. But let's jump back to your social media, because I feel like you've got a lot of success from that in the past decade. Um, you've gone viral quite a few times, as we've said, on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and TikTok.
Hmm.
Um, do you
Totally.
find having those videos take off so much? Does that affect your mindset around posting new stuff? Like, do you feel like you have to make something that good again in order for it to be worthy of posting, or do you still just, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. Yes, I definitely think that there is more pressure in some ways. Yes, for sure, to kind of keep up with the frequency and posting schedule for sure, and also to have it be as good as the last one, right? Because yeah, I've had those viral videos, and yeah, when a video goes viral, it's almost like a drug. It's like you're like, my gosh, it's getting like 200,000 views a day. Let's go, man. Let's go. I'm getting so many new followers from this, and it's really exciting. And you think of all the ways that it could potentially affect your career and help you along in your career. So in that instance, yes, I very much feel the pressure to try to make something that lives up to that expectation, right? Which is difficult to do because you never really know which of your videos is going to take off. sometimes it's something you don't expect, right? So you just kind of have to keep posting and not worry too much about whether one video will go viral or not, because eventually, you, if you're doing the work and putting in the effort, something probably will, but you
Right.
just never know what. So, yeah, there's definitely some pressure, but also it's good to kind of take a step back and sometimes focus on your mental health, because, yeah, posting a lot, being on social media a lot, you know, isn't always the best.
Take a toll for sure.
Yeah, it can take
Yeah.
a toll for sure. So,
I see the similar thing in my own posting because I try to post pretty regularly, and
yeah.
at this point with my current like followers and everything, a good video for me is like 5,000 to 10,000 views on Instagram. So if I have something that kind of flops and it's like 500 views or something, I'm like, well, that was a waste of time. But
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't, because not everything can go viral, and you can also like repost that same video and then it gets like 2,000 views, and you're like, oh, well, then it was a fluke or whatever, because
Yeah.
you can always just repost it,
Yeah,
and it's
that's
just
true.
a different time of day. It hits different people, it gets pushed differently. It's like, there is an algorithm to it, but it's also still very random.
Yeah, it can be very random. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's step out of music for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so for people who don't know, I've worked with you quite a bit. You're my private bass teacher,
Yep.
but you were also the music director for the tour last year, like we said. I
Mm-hmm.
was the monitor engineer for that tour. So um, for last summer, we were seeing each other almost every day
True.
for months, and over that time, I gotten to know you pretty well, and your personality and your charisma and obviously your skill as a bass player. Um, but I think most people would say you're a funny guy, and you have, what would you say, like some catchphrases, I guess, for
Yes,
lack of a
I
better
think I
term.
do. Yeah.
Do you think, those, maybe, first of all, share a couple of your favorite ones with us, and then
Okay.
also,
Ooh,
but hold on, but then also tell us, um, where do you think those came from? Did you make them up yourself? Did they come from your family or from people you've been
right.
inspired by? Or where does your, not just your catchphrases, but your sense of humor come from?
I see. I see. That's a good question. Catchphrases. I'm being put on the spot here.
Yeah.
What are these? I'm trying to remember catchphrases. I remember making a lot of puns.
Yeah, puns. Yeah. That could be a good one
Yeah, yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Lots of puns. Like trying to think of what my catchphrases are. I know I have a few. Uh,
I can remind you of a couple, and I know
okay.
if anybody from the tour is watching this, they'll understand what we're talking about.
Right.
But
Okay.
it's also like the way you say them and the timing of when you say them, because usually
Yep.
they're far enough apart that it's like it's
Yeah.
always unexpected, even though you do it all the time.
Yeah. It's
Um,
true. It's true.
Even simple things like you'll always say, "What's good in the hood?" That's one
That's
you'll say
true.
to greet people, or
Yeah. Yeah.
cool in
Yeah.
the school. You just do rhyming things or other
Right.
puns, that
Yes.
kind of thing. Some other ones
Right.
that are less appropriate, but still funny.
Yeah, there are some other ones that are we might maybe can't say here, but yes, cool in the school. Yeah, I remember doing that one a lot. Yeah, just like rhyming random words together. Like, yeah, I do a lot of that. Um, one of the things I do, one of the ones I say with my friends back home sometimes that I say sometimes that's a stank you can bank on. So again, like I don't know. Yeah, you can
Is
bank
that
on that,
like
I guess.
is that is that like a musical stank, or like a smelly kind of stank?
I'm not exactly sure. I think the stank is just like a thing. It's like it's
Right.
just any type of thing, right? So it's like if we're in rehearsal and we're playing a thing and somebody says like, oh, we should stick to following the drums here because he's laying down the roof. That's a stank you can bank on, right? It's like, that's something you can count on, I guess. Something like that, right?
Yeah, right.
To just emphasize the importance of that particular thing. So yeah, I say a lot of things like that. I obviously have a lot of on the spot or on the fly puns. I have a friend back home. His name is Sebastian. He's a really great virtuoso guitar player. But another thing we share other than music is our sense of humor, and he's just like on the money with puns all the time. He's just like constantly thinking of them. And I know him so well that I know when he's brewing one up in his head, he'll just have this like sly little smirk on his face, and he'll kind of just be looking down, like you can tell he's conniving. He's thinking
Cooking
about how he
something
can like insert this pun and into the conversation. And I'm just like, oh man, where is this going, buddy? Like, what are you doing with this? So, yeah, him and I have shared a lot of different puns over the years. We sometimes when we play a gig out of town, it's people will think we're crazy. People who drive with us have to share the car with us. They're just like, these two guys are insane. We'll be like on the drive home, if it's like 4 or 5 hours, we'll just be coming up with puns the whole entire way, just being like making puns out of everything we see, the trees, the road signage, like one of the ones I came up with recently was they were talking about pizza, and they're like, yeah, have you tried this really great pizza? Like it's like kind of got a Greek Mediterranean thing going, and there's lots of feta cheese and olives and tomatoes and all that type of stuff. And I said, I don't know, man. If I had too much of that pizza, I think I would get kind of fed up with it after a while.
Nice.
So it's just about those kind of on the spot puns that you kind of insert into the situation. And I think I did that with the cast because it's just a fun way of it's team building, like it's making everybody feel good and like throwing in some puns. And sometimes I would get some booze, but that would just make me even more motivated to bring them in.
I think sometimes it's even funnier too when you'll kind of throw them in there, but you won't make it noticeable that it was a pun. Just
Right.
and you can kind of see only a couple people will get it, and then everybody else is like, "Wait, what? What did I miss?" And that makes it even more funny.
Yeah,
So.
it's true because it's like the laughter is delayed. Everybody's like, "Wait, oh, I get it." Yeah.
You got it. You
That
slipped that
happened
one
a
in
few
there. We didn't
times.
notice. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a sly
Totally.
dog.
Sly dog, exactly.
Yeah. So I was watching, like I said, a couple of your interviews before this, and I believe you mentioned your brother as you're crediting some of your introduction to music to your brother.
Absolutely.
But you could touch on that too, but I wanted to ask about your parents. Are they musicians? Did they inspire you at all to do music? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. A lot of musicians come from a musical family, and they just kind of pass it down through the generations. But neither of my parents was a musician. I think my dad, he did take clarinet and piano lessons when he was a kid, but he wasn't really like a musician. He doesn't jam, or hasn't taken it into adult age. And my mom really wanted to play music growing up, but she grew up, on a working class family on a farm in Saskatchewan, so there wasn't as many opportunities to play music for her, unfortunately. So, but I will say that both of my parents are actually, I think, like the mindset of musicians is still kind of in the family, because I think to be a musician, you kind of have to be creative and analytical, because the analytical part is like understanding like the song structure, the music theory, the rhythm, and then the creative part is obviously being able to come up with something inspiring, or come up with your own music, and
Right.
creatively kind of write a part for a song. And I think that type of thinking is, both of my parents have that. My we're analytical people. We're all pretty good at math and stuff like that. But my parents, my mom was really good visual artist, and my dad was really good writer. So there's definitely that creative aspect with both my parents, and I think that aspect they passed on down to us, and my brother and we just kind of channeled it into music. My brother was the first one in the family to pick up music. He picked up the drums, and after listening to him bang away at the drums for like 3 hours a day, suddenly I was just like, man, I think I want to pick up the bass. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
imagine you two did quite a bit of jamming together then, drums and bass.
Yes. Yeah, we started jamming together a lot, as a kind of brothers rhythm section of brothers, and yeah, we even had played in a couple bands together, and that was really awesome. Just being a rhythm section of two brothers, we can kind of, more so than other drummers, like it's easy to lock in with him because we already think the same way. So it's just like, with most drummers, I find it's like you kind of have to get used to them first, really, before it starts to lock in. You have to like get a sense of how this guy places his timing and how he likes to approach the groove. Whereas with my brother, it was like, pretty much just, instant. We just think the same, so we kind of groove. We fit in well together in terms of grooving and stuff. So, yeah. So he was kind of my main inspiration for taking up music, for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool to be able to play with your brothers. My two brothers, we've all had music lessons when we were growing up. My one brother was a trumpet player. My other brother was a basketball player. So, but yeah, it's always fun when you can play with family. Obviously, my older sister as well. I don't know if you ever met her, but she's a solo folk artist, and we're putting together a bit of a band, and so it's always fun to play with your family. There's a different level of kind of connection and with playing with family, because it's just, it's, if you mess up, it's like you're still my brother or my sister, and if you're writing stuff together or you're performing together, like you're in it no matter what, kind of thing.
Totally.
Do you still play with your brother, or does he still do music much, or no?
Yeah, he doesn't do music as much. I don't think there's as much time because he's kind of working full time, and he's got a family. He's got 2 kids now. So I think he does sometimes, occasionally, hit the drums, but we don't get to jam together as much as we used to. Which,
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Colin. This has been a really good conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to shout out? Any shows you got coming up for people in the Vancouver area? Or I guess you've got that tour coming up too, so I'll be sure to check out for those Ontario dates, because I don't think I've actually seen you play your standard show outside of the co-op. So
it's true.
Yeah, but anything you want to shout out, go ahead.
Yeah, so well, for the Vancouver area, we got a couple cool shows coming up. There's one on Friday, August 7th. Yeah. Friday, August 7th.
This should be coming out on Thursday, so that'll be tomorrow if you're watching this when this comes out.
Yeah. Go ahead. So my band Funkyard is playing at Guilt & Co. in Vancouver. We're doing the late show. It's just a bunch of really funky covers, and sometimes funky covers of songs you don't expect, like Paramore, Nickelback,
Cool.
Creed, or even Slipknot. So lots
Wow.
of funk music, but sometimes funky covers of songs you don't expect. So that'll be cool. And then next Saturday on August 15th, I'll be bringing my own band, the Colin Sankey Band, to the Rec Room in Vancouver, and we're going to be doing a set of Mario themed tunes. So it's just going to be all Mario music, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Odyssey. We're going to have a projector on the in the background showing Mario footage. We're going to be dressing up in Mario outfits. It's just going to be all Mario all
Nice.
night.
That's very fitting for the Rec Room.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be great. And then in September and October, I'm going to be touring with a cover band called Relive the Music. We're doing 50s, 60s, and 70s music. So it's going to be all kind of throwback. It's going to be, I think, 2 sets. And yeah, there's, different dates in Ontario and across Canada, obviously, but a lot of dates in Ontario. So if you want to find out about those, you can just look up Relive the Music, and they have all the tour dates listed on their website.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Colin. I'll talk
Thank
to you
you
very soon, I hope.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.